Imagine a body so damaged by radiation that even its cells are torn apart. The victim's DNA is dissolved at its core, and every organ is on the brink of collapse. In today's video, we will explore the terrifying events that led to Ouchi's extreme radiation exposure, the agonizing 83 days he spent under intensive medical care, and the enduring ethical debate. Were these life-prolonging treatments truly an act of compassion? Or did they serve as a macabre experiment to document the effects of massive radiation poisoning on the human body? This is raw history. September 30th, 1999. Tokaimura, Japan. Hisashi Ouchi and two co-workers were preparing a batch of nuclear fuel for an experimental reactor. Under pressure to meet deadlines, they abandoned strict safety protocols in favor of faster, more hazardous methods, mixing radioactive materials in large stainless steel buckets. Suddenly, the room was bathed in a blinding blue flash. This was Cherenkov radiation, a sign that a critical nuclear chain reaction had begun. Ouchi, who was closest to the container, received an unprecedented dose of radiation, 17 sieverts, more than 4 times the lethal threshold for humans. Within moments, Ouchi experienced dizziness, nausea, and searing pain. His skin felt as though it were on fire. By the time he arrived at the University of Tokyo hospital, the medical team could hardly believe what they were seeing. His skin was blistering and peeling. His organs were already beginning to fail. Most disturbingly, his immune system had been nearly obliterated, and his DNA, vital for cellular repair, was extensively damaged. Doctors knew they were dealing with a case that had had no medical precedent. As Ouchi's body deteriorated, the medical team launched an all-out effort to save him, or at least to try to keep him alive. He underwent stem cell transplants from his sister in a desperate bid to rebuild his immune system. His charred skin was replaced through grafts, and daily blood transfusions helped compensate for his body's failing ability to produce healthy cells. Officially, these measures aimed to give Ouchi a fighting chance. However, critics argue that the severity of his condition made survival virtually impossible, casting doubt on the true motive behind such aggressive care. Were these interventions purely humanitarian, or were doctors attempting to study a once-in-a-lifetime case of extreme radiation poisoning? For 83 days, Hisashi Ouchi's condition was a roller coaster of momentary improvements followed by devastating relapses. He survived multiple cardiac arrests, battled constant infections, and watched his body systematically fail. Meanwhile, daily medical reports collected valuable insight into how radiation ravages human physiology. Stem cell viability, skin graft integration, and organ function were all meticulously tracked. Physicians, researchers, and even government officials closely monitored the developments, making Ouchi's case one of the most well-documented instances of high-dose radiation poisoning in medical history. But this intense scrutiny had a moral dimension. Some observers, including a few members of Japan's medical community, accused the hospital of prolonging Ouchi's suffering in the name of scientific knowledge. They pointed to the escalating battery of procedures, each more desperate than the last, as evidence that he was being kept alive, largely to observe how his body responded to treatment. Doctors argued they were simply following the wishes of the family to save their son, claiming, "We had no intention of turning Ouchi-san into an experiment. We followed the family's wishes and did everything possible to save him." Critics, however, proposed that this was nothing more than an extreme medical experiment, claiming, given how much radiation he had absorbed, there was virtually no chance of recovery. His final weeks were an agonizing showcase an unwilling experiment in nuclear medicine. Ouchi's family insisted on continuing life support, holding on to the faintest glimmer of hope. In Japan, family wishes heavily influenced medical decisions, and the care team honored those wishes. But the family's emotional struggle raises a difficult ethical question. Was continuing treatment an act of compassion, or did it ultimately serve scientific curiosity? Although few dispute that the family genuinely wanted Ouchi to live, the line between treatment and research had grown blurred. On December 21st, 1999, after nearly 3 months of unimaginable suffering, Hisashi Ouchi's body finally gave out. He died from multiple organ failure, leaving behind a legacy that is both heartbreaking and controversial. His story continues to haunt not only Japan, but the wider scientific community. For some, his final days represent an urgent warning about the dangers of cutting corners in nuclear facilities. For others, they symbolize the darkest intersection of medical science and ethical responsibility. But what do you think? Did Ouchi receive the best possible care for a hopeless condition? Or was he a living experiment, kept alive solely to document the progression of a lethal radiation poisoning? Thank you for joining me on this rather dark look into history, and please do consider subscribing, liking the video, and leaving a comment to let me know what you thought. It really does make a difference.